So this is a preview of the RoboInvestor platform from Synchron. And the idea behind this platform is really following on from the successes that you see from companies like Betterment and Wealthfront. It is about how to create a automated robo-advisor for wealth management solutions. It's not intended to be fully automated, although it can be, but rather a hybrid robo-advisor, which means that it can provide automated advice for some customers, but then also facilitate face-to-face contact with customers who still want to maintain their relationship with their wealth manager. So the beginning of the demonstration is about how to profile yourself as a new customer. So we go through a series of simple questions which profile the kind of person that you are and your life circumstances. So in this case, I'm a male. Roughly what age? Why is this important? Because some of the advice that we will give through the robo-advisor are based on life stages. So whether you're married or with children or approaching retirement or at the beginning of your career is all very relevant depending on the kind of advice that you're going to get. So let's say 40. What's my income? Let's say my income is that. This again is important because it also allows you to create investment goals that are relevant. So if you're a couple and you're looking for retirement, or if you're a family and you need something like an education fund, this profiling allows us to do that. So in this case, my partner is just younger than me, that much, and we have 2 children. Do you own a property? Again, this is also about your net assets and the wealth that you've got, and also depending on the type of advice that you get. Do you want an investment plan that helps you pay off your mortgage, or is there for your retirement pension planning? So let's say I own my house. It obviously localizes the information. So in this particular case, it would pick up either Dubai if you're in Dubai, or Abu Dhabi, or any country for that matter. Okay, now we get to the stage of the questionnaire where it's actually asking questions about what type of investor you're going to be. So it says, how much would you like to invest yearly? I'm going to go with 50,000 yearly. And we begin now the risk assessment profiling. So there's a series of 9 questions. We've picked these 9 questions because they were readily available on the internet, but ultimately the solution could be customized to take the questions of the company whose wealth management solution we would be building. Each company has its own questionnaires. Many of them use these questionnaires today through paper. So a wealth manager will actually visit a client and give them a form to fill out, and they would answer these questions. And at the end of it, they would use the responses to the questions to determine what their risk appetite is like. In our case, it automatically does that. So as you select the option, you'll notice the needle on the left-hand side reflects the amount of risk appetite. So if I went there, it would be slightly less risky. If I went here, it would be slightly more risky. So I'm going to quickly fly through these 9 questions, and as I do, you will see that the needle will move to reflect the risk appetite of the questions that I've answered. It's obviously not that important what these questions are, because for each organization they would be different. So that's the 9th question, and we're done. We now get to the point where we have to establish the goals that we want to set out for our investment plan, whether they be short-term goals, long-term goals. This is the part where you actually are developing your strategy for investment. So in this particular case, let's say I'm going to create one goal, which is to save for my kids' education. Now we click on add goals. My initial investment, I've put in, let's say 41,000 for how many months, and let's say this is a 20-month investment plan. I'm going to contribute 1,000 to that with a horizon of another 1,000, and the money in my savings account is 30,000. Okay, so I've basically set up a risk. I've basically set up an investment goal, and that's to create enough money for my children's education fund. Now that the robo-advisor knows a little bit about me, knows what kind of an investor I am and what my goals are like, it's going to offer me a range of funds to choose from, which it has decided are best suited towards me and my profile. So at this point, it's given me five funds to choose from, right? CGWM Select Income Fund, AB Global Bond Funds, and so on and so forth. And when I select those that particular fund, what it does is it provides me with information about the fund. So in this particular case, the CGWM, I can see what's the sector diversification of this fund, how much of it is in bond, cash, non-US stock, US stock. I can look at the projection for how this fund might perform with a, what's the highest range and the lowest range that it's expected to perform within. I can actually look up and see what makes up that fund in terms of the various investments that they've made. So in this case, I can see that the CGWM Select Income Fund has got, Artemis, Schroders, Jupiter, Leg, Alliance, all these organizations, and that's the weighting. I can also look at the historical view and see how it's been performing. Now, these are all options, but obviously for some investors who are really not interested in this, what they might simply want to know is, what is my option A, B, and C? Give me something that has a return of 5%, and I'll choose from that. That's all possible. Obviously, we've built this in so that you can see that maybe a more astute investor can have a little bit more detailed information into the fund. So we're going to choose this fund, and there you have it. Now the screen that you're looking at now is the screen of somebody who already has made an investment. So let's say this is fast-tracked to a year down the line, and now I'm looking at my portfolio as an investor to see how I'm doing. There's obviously the standard graph that you see in front of you, which is about how you're performing in terms of the money that you've invested. We've also introduced other features like this calendar activity, which allows you to drill back in time as an investor to a particular period of the year when maybe you were trading a little bit more positively. And actually, we've built it in such a way that you can actually go to the particular day in which you're trading and drill back and look at all of the trades that you were making. This is obviously very important for many organizations who want that historical analysis from the data in order to pick up trading patterns. Okay, the next thing we have is top investors like you, and the concept here is, how do you take other investors who are on this platform and maybe have similar profiles to you? So for instance, they are roughly your age with your income and have similar investment goals, but for some reason some of them have a far higher success rate in investing. And so as a potential investor, you might want to simply understand why they are achieving what they're achieving, and even better yet, copy them. So let's have a look. If we go into Mr. Buffett, we can see some general information about him and his investment strategy. We can see his particular returns to date, 23 points, and the amount of trades he's made. We can see the diversification within his portfolio. Now, if I'm a very novice investor and I can see that this guy is making good returns on his money, then perhaps the best option for me is to simply go and copy him, right? And that's why we've enabled this copy me button. So this is the element of social vesting that we've added into the RoboInvestor. And really the idea behind that is to make everybody who's an investor a potential fund manager. Now, for many organizations who already have wealth advisors and wouldn't really see this as a very positive thing in terms of justifying the fees that they charge, instead of having Warren Buffett, what you could do is have a fund manager or a wealth manager and look at his performance of his track record. Or alternatively, a fund manager or a wealth manager could have created multiple personas with varying degrees of risk, so a low risk persona, a medium risk persona, a high risk persona. And you can actually have a look at how their performance has been over date, like a model portfolio, and then opt to link to that by clicking on the copy me button. Other things that we've done within the homepage is obviously try to visualize the holdings. So in this case, I'm showing equities that are held, but I could equally show what FX have been held, commodities or ETFs. And what you see here is also a custom news feed that pulls out news articles and information that's very relevant to the shares that I'm holding or the investments that I'm holding. We've also introduced this option at the top, which is the Call Advisor. And the idea behind this is at any point in time, you could click on that and have a video chat with your advisor. He'd be able to see your screen and your investment portfolio, and he could give you advice accordingly. Okay, now if you're a little bit more of an advanced investor and you want to be able to do a lot of the trading or the investment strategy yourself, then we've given that ability to do that as well. And when I click on the markets, what you see here is, here we have a range of varying equities. This is currently connected to Yahoo Finance so that we can pick up the market data, but essentially it could be connected to any data source. So for our clients, we would connect it to their preferred data source, whether it's Reuters or Bloomberg or any of those types of organizations. Now, if as a experienced investor, I take a shine to one particular type of equity, let's say it's the Nike equity, then what we've built is a very custom feature here, which will do some deep analysis into Nike, for instance, in this particular case, as an investment asset, and present you with this website or this report. So first of all, I can see how Nike is trading. In this particular case, it's down 1.9% today. I can look at its historical performance over the month. Another thing that we've introduced is this ability to predict the price. So using a range of proprietary algorithms, we have developed a solution that should be able to forecast and predict what the equities share price will be doing over the following 3 days. Okay, so here is where you can actually see the performance that's anticipated of this particular equity. We have done some initial testing, and whilst they haven't been entirely validated yet, what we've seen is around an accuracy of 95% in our predictions around this, and so that's something that we will continue to work on. Other things that you will see in here is what people think. So typically today, how does an equity get a rating? It gets a rating from an analyst. Some analysts have various different ways of calculating that. So you could say, if you're a particularly positive analyst on Nike stock, you could say it's a buy or it's outperform, which means it's doing very well. Equally, if you're not so bullish on the particular equity, an analyst provider might say it's a sell or a hold. What we're trying to do is take the opinion out of this and really make it very factual and based on science. So we developed an algorithm that would go into various data sources. So in this case, one that goes to Facebook, one that goes to Twitter, to LinkedIn, and to all other. And what it does is it looks for comments being made by people through those channels about Nike in as an investment, and it understands if they're being positive or negative about them, and gives a score, gives a sentiment analysis score. So it then takes that information from Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and other samples, and other samples might include discussion boards or any proprietary source of information where people are discussing things, and it aggregates the total of all of these channels, and out it puts a percentage score of how well it has performed. And in this case, it's shown it as 29%, which is relatively poor and not very confident. So it's basically saying that Nike is certainly not looking like the type of stock where you want to be throwing all of your investments at the moment. Another thing that we've done is we've managed to pull up a news feed here, which is very specific to the equity. So in this case, Nike, and as you can see, Nike features in all of the subject headings for these news articles. And what we've then done is used our sentiment analysis engine to look through the article and understand whether it's being positive or negative towards Nike. So for instance, in this case, Better Buy, Nike Inc. versus Skechers. This was viewed as a fairly negative news article on Nike, and so it scores it down. And really, it's a combination of all these factors, which is probably pointing towards the stock being very bearish. The other thing that we've done is we've introduced the concept of a bot. And in this particular case, it's the Nike bot. So why have we done that? Well, really because today there are a number of activities that are either done by ourselves through research on the internet, or you speak up your broker dealer and ask them things like, hey, what is the share price of Nike trading at today? What's the 52-week high, 52-week low? When was the latest dividend paid? What are the director dealings? Anything that typically you would rely on somebody else to do, now you're going to be able to do that through the chatbot, right? So it means for the vast majority of what we need, the chatbot will actually be having a dialogue with us and telling us that. So if I simply go in here and I say, what is the share price for IBM? Okay. Obviously, the response would typically come back, but we're doing some maintenance work on that. So just test it out again later on in the day, and you'll be able to see it working much better. It can also make chit chat. So hi, hey, how are you? Okay, So let's move on to IFTTT. IFTTT is like how you set up standing orders that can be automatically implemented based on the type of career that you've chosen to do within the application. So the way it works is you set up rules. So things like if the oil price hits $20 per barrel, then buy $200,000 of oil. So what you see here is me being able to pre-configure a set of rules about how to govern my portfolio, and I can switch these off and on. Equally, the bank or the organization or the wealth manager could create a set of predefined rules of their own, and if you wanted those rules because they have a performance improvement every time somebody shows them, then it becomes an easy thing for us to do. Activity is fairly simple. We just had to put some data in there, which is one of our guys, Michael, being able to share comments via Twitter or LinkedIn. We're able to actually connect to him and watch him because every now and again he has a habit of releasing something when it's not quite done yet. Okay. If you click on goals, it also gives you an indication of the goals that were preset earlier, so you can kind of see how they are. We will build additional functionality which allows us to make broad recommendations on the goals that you've set. And with that, we are done. This has taken about 23 minutes to fly you through the presentation on this particular solution. You may need to cut it down to about 10 minutes for the Temenos Jam, but I'm pretty sure that you'll be able to do that tomorrow.